We are currently executing multiple trades right now. We are currently executing multiple trades right now. Ethereum is active. SPX is on the move. Here at Bitcoin on Point, we are currently executing multiple trades. Ethereum, for one, is active. SPX is already moving, and we have another setup quietly building in the background. Now, I'm telling you, in the next 24 to 48 hours, here at Bitcoin on Point, we currently have multiple trades right now. Here at Bitcoin on Point, we are currently in multiple trades. Now, I'm telling you, the next 24 hours... Here at Bitcoin on Point, we are currently in multiple trades. Ethereum is active. Here at Bitcoin on Point, we are currently in multiple trades. Ethereum is active. SPX is already moving, and there is another setup quietly building in the background. Now, I'm telling you guys, the next 24 to 48 hours could decide everything. Because whilst we are positioned, Bitcoin is compressing at a critical level. The weekly structure looks heavy, the daily structure for Bitcoin looks relatively explosive, and the 4-hour chart is coiling up for a breakout. This isn't a random moment in the market. This is pressure that is building. The kind of pressure that leads to aggressive expansion or for one final shakeout. In today's the kind of pressure that either leads to expansion or the possibility of one final shakeout. This is Bitcoin on Point, where I break down the market in real time and emotion free. In today's video, I'm going to show you why Bitcoin is sitting at a make or break level, why the daily structure is flashing a powerful signal, and why the 4-hour time frame is potentially gearing up for expansion. Plus, I will also provide quick updates on all of our trades. Plus, I will also provide updates on all of my trades and exactly what I'm looking for next. Plus, I will also provide updates on all of our trades, and plus I'll also show updates on all of our trades and exactly what I'm watching next. So if this helps you stay ahead of the market instead of chasing it, make sure to like the video and subscribe, because it's a So if this helps you stay ahead of the market, instead of chasing it, make sure to like the video and instead of chasing it, make sure to like the video and subscribe. Now let's get into it. And before we dive into any further technicals, we're going to study the macro. So if this helps you stay ahead of the market instead of chasing it, make sure to like the video and subscribe. Now, before we dive further into the charts, let's look at the macro context, because the big money is positioning. Morgan Stanley is making a crypto core wealth product, not just So if this helps you stay... So if this does help you stay ahead of the market instead of chasing it, make sure to like the video and subscribe. Now, before we get further into the charts, let's look at the macro context because the big money is positioning. Morgan Stanley is making... So if this is the kind of information that helps you stay... So if this is the kind of information that helps you stay ahead of the market instead of chasing it, make sure to like the video and subscribe. Now, before we So if this is the kind of information that helps you stay ahead of the market instead of chasing it, make sure to like the video and subscribe. Now, before we dive... So if this is the kind of information that helps you stay ahead of the market instead of chasing it, make sure to like the video and subscribe. Now, before we dive any deeper into the charts, we're going to look at the macro context where big money is positioning. Morgan Stanley is making crypto a core wealth product, not just a side offering. And this includes spot Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana trading that is coming to E-Trade powered by Zero Hash. It includes a branded wallet, spot ETF filings, and advisor integration. So Wall Street isn't just buying crypto anymore, right? It's actually selling it to Main Street. This is huge. Now, in our next piece of macro information, Kevin O'Leary just dropped a bombshell. He has stated that trillions of dollars are lined up to buy Bitcoin. And it all starts the second the laws pass. So looking at the Clarity Act, once the bill is signed, real money moves in. And this is potentially the biggest capital inflow in Bitcoin history if we get the clarity. This isn't a small amount. This isn't a small announcement to make. And if anything happens on this similar narrative front, crypto is going to explode. Now, with that in mind, ahead of the FOMC Vice Chair speech, a Fed insider with a 100% win rate has just opened a $110 million ETH long. Now, right ahead of the FOMC Vice Chair speech, a Fed insider with a 100% win rate has just opened a $110 million ETH long. Now, right ahead of the FOMC Vice Chair speech, a Fed insider with a 100% win rate just opened a $110 million ETH long. Now, in October, he made $150 million with a single short ahead of a Fed meeting. So is this coincidental? He just went all in again, just like last time. $110 million going long on ETH. This isn't a random move. This is historical memory from a Fed trader. So whilst Wall Street is integrating and trillions are waiting in capital on the sidelines for clarity to pass, none of this is coincidental. This is how expansion phases quietly begin. Now, with that in mind, we are going to get back into the charts and we're going to look at the Bitcoin weekly setup. And with this, we've got clear structure. We have this resistance trend line and a support trend line. Now, logically speaking, the last level of contact in this channel or this sort of resistance and support setup was at resistance. And this is why we've had a structural breakdown. So looking at this a little bit closer, what actually happened was Bitcoin retraced back down to sort of 106K, then rallied to 115K. And this marked the first level of decline, losing this black ascending level of support, right? Now, when it did lose this decline, it fell quite steeply back down to 86K before running into resistance at 93 and then witnessing another corrective move, right? So logically speaking, because we had the last point of resistance and this structural breakdown, our next target possibly could be back down on this support line of this sort of channel that we're looking at. And that's where we could mark a potential low, right? 61K. But, however, there is an interesting setup that happened in 2024, which could potentially negate such a scenario. And with this being said, we could actually see expansion sooner than we expect. So if we don't actually get the retracement to 61K and we analyze a potential scenario like 2024, what we had was a rally up from support, right, into a level of resistance, which actually failed to meet the trend line. And this would have looked very fearful. But Bitcoin then went through a correction, created another ascending level of support, and then later in 2024, extended up to the resistance line. So it didn't look like Bitcoin was going to initially continue. It looked like Bitcoin was going to sort of crash back down into the depths, but we actually rallied back up to the trend line. So with that being said, do we actually come back to 61K, or could we see the bulls step in here and demand come through and actually negate it for a rally back up to the resistance trend line? There is a huge possibility, right? So we're in a similar situation. Price is near the structure, but if the demand steps in, we could see expansion before a full channel rotation back down to support. So this is where everything hangs in the balance. Now, with that in mind, we're actually going to dive into Bitcoin on the daily time frame, because if today's candle closes above a key level of support, then we're looking for... Now, with that in mind, we're going to dive into the Bitcoin daily structure, because if candles today provide a bullish reaction, then we've got the chance to break imminent levels of resistance. Now, those imminent levels of resistance, sit between 70 and 72K. We've discussed this in multiple videos, right? And over the last few days, in fact, Bitcoin's been holding this ascending level of support. Now, we did see a bounce a few days ago, and we had some bullish engulfing candles, but they did rally up to 70.5K. And again, in the past, since sort of early February, this has been a key level of resistance, $70.5 thousand. So if today's candle close actually holds above the last 2 days of support, which roughly sits at 68.8K, this is where we could see the expansion back up to 70 to 72. Now, providing we get that, and if Bitcoin does start breaking above it, the real area of interest would be roughly at 79 to 80K, which is the previous levels of resistance from the sort of 1st of February, end of January, 1st of February. So we've got key levels of resistance above, and if this candle closes bullish, then we have the chance to break those levels of resistance. However, if not, and we do close below it, then simply just look for the ascending support line that Bitcoin's been building since sort of the first week of February, right? So this is potentially where real structure shifts can actually happen, as long as we hold the support and break the resistance. Now, a quick note before we go into the 4-hour time frame. Now, a quick note before we go into the 4-hour time frame. All my trades are tracked on the Profits Precision dashboard, and every execution happens live inside my Telegram. All of the links are available in the video description. Now, moving on to Bitcoin on the 4-hour time frame, we have a potential bullish setup that's occurring here, right? Again, similar to the daily, zooming in here, we have a key level of ascending support. And if we get a close above that 72K that we was looking at on the daily, right, $72,000, if we can get that on the 4-hour and actually hold this ascending level of support, then this is where if we get a bullish close above it, the next level again reacts to that 80K, right? So this is why 80K is a major level of resistance and a level that it's actually a key level of interest, especially if Bitcoin does break above $72,000, right? So the first scenario I would look for, if we get the break above 72K, hold it as support, this could continue the expansion to 78. And if we actually get the hold that as support, this is where a real structure shift can occur for Bitcoin on the larger time frames. So as long as Bitcoin defends this ascending support, even if it comes back into it now, for example, before looking for the break above 72K, then that's a bullish sign for continuation towards 79K, right? However, if Bitcoin fails to hold this ascending support, then this is where we could get the opportunities to stoop back down into the weekly order block, which sits between sort of 64 to 60K. And that again would offer an opportunity to create a larger double bottom structure. So key things to take away, really and truly, from the whole setup in Bitcoin is that on the weekly, we are at a critical inflection point, right? If we do see continuation to the downside in bearish momentum, 61K becomes a real possibility. However, the daily has a real inflection decision point. If we see the close above 68.8K, the doors open for expansion to 72K and potentially even 80K, right? So this is critically important, what Bitcoin does here. If it does reclaim 72K and get the breakout and hold it as support, we're looking for that expansion. If not, we simply look for a dip back down into the weekly order block. It's that simple. Ascending support has to be respected or we see the depreciation. So that's kind of wrapping up a Bitcoin for us now. And with that in mind, we're going to head over to Ethereum. And on the 4-hour for Ethereum, this is where our first trade update comes in. Because we've been active in this position for some time, and our first entry was at $1,959, which was executed back in sort of 13th to 14th of February, I think it was. And then we've seen our second entry at $2,041. Sorry, that was our first entry. Do forgive me. The first entry was $2,041. And this was... Now, with Bitcoin wrapped up on the... So with Bitcoin wrapped up, we're now going to dive into Ethereum on the 4-hour time frame, and this is where our first trade update is going to be happening. Now, we have both of our entries filled at $2,041 and $1,959, and at the moment, ETH is sitting on critical support. So what we could see over the next sort of day or two is ETH actually, because it's holding this ascending support that we've been monitoring, we could see a rally up to ascending triangle resistance because we have this structure that's actually forming, right? We have an ascending level of support, a level of resistance, and we're back down at this support right now. So the next logical step is back into ascending triangle resistance before a higher low retest, and then actually looking for the fulfillment of our long setup, right? Looking for that expansion towards sort of 2.3 to 2.4K, which would give us the confirmation and the execution of this trade. So if we continue to respect this ascending triangle structure and hold support, in the short term, we could be looking for a run up into resistance, build another higher low, and then look for the expansion on ETH, right? So that's the ETH update and what I'm expecting next. The potential rally short term, come back for a higher low, and then really kickstart the move to get our profits into gear. Now, on our SPX setup, this is the next trade, which actually executed, I think, was it yesterday or the day before we was looking at it? It came right down into our entry, which was at roughly 31 cents. And we're now positioned in this setup. So what I'm looking for potentially at this stage is a retracement back into this sort of level, there was a previous level of resistance, right? We discussed this in yesterday's video. There was a previous level of resistance. SPX actually got the breakout. It's come back to support, had a relief rally. If we get a potential dip into this zone, I wouldn't fear because it could potentially just offer the setup for the continuation of the trend, right? Because we broke this key level of resistance, this is how our entry came into fruition. We broke the resistance, ran up to another local high, corrected, and this is what provided the opportunity. So as long as we hold above this sort of resistance trend line and mark higher lows, this is where we're looking for the execution of the trade. Now, lastly, on our third setup, this is pump. We're not active yet. We're actually still waiting. We do have an entry which is down at 0.002, but that didn't come into fruition. Now, as long as we don't take out TP2, this trade setup is still active and still a potential. As long as we place a lower high or reject a level of resistance, even though we've broke through the TP1, price could still come back towards our entry, build a base, and then look for the expansion. So we're simply waiting on this one, guys, okay? It could present itself, but if it doesn't, there's always other things we're going to capitalize. And again, we have two trade setups that are already active. So to summarize today's video, Bitcoin is looking or sitting, sorry, at a critical level right now, which could mark a retest back down to 61K if bearish momentum continues. However, if the bulls step in similar to 2024, which looks scary, demand could actually take us to new all-time highs very soon. The daily is signaling a critical close on these candles as we are sitting on 68.8K. If we close above, it could provide entrance towards 72K to 78K. And on the 4-hour time frames, this is what might decide everything, right? If Bitcoin does push up and break 72K, 80K is on the cards. However, we do have the weekly bullish order block below if we lose ascending support that could provide a macro double bottom. So 60K, guys, is currently the level that we need to monitor to hold for the bullish expansion, but it could step in sooner. Who knows? If you've enjoyed the content, please make sure to like the video and subscribe. All of our stuff is tracked on the Profits Precision dashboard, and everything is executed live free in my Telegram. You are missing out if you're not heading over there. The links are in the description. I'll see you in the next update.